Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the episode right before 180. That's, of course, episode 179 of Colette and Matt Invented to Chat, and weekly conversation about video games and the virtual worlds that we love to inhabit when we're not inhabiting this real world. This is what this medium is for, okay? The real world, not feeling it, not really interested in it at this time. Yeah. And I would like to go into another world where there are, I don't know, dragons, elves, spaceships, those kinds of things.
Democracy, I don't know.
Can you think of a single video game that's like, yep, democracy, voting simulator 2025? You know what I mean?
No, because
Boring.
no one wants to do that. That sounds like the worst. And yes, especially in our current season, I think that would be in very poor taste.
I just put down a little mobile game where I'm just marching my troops across the land and squashing all the other players in my path. I'm actively putting down democracy in my virtual world while simultaneously going out and doing early voting, which we did this early afternoon.
Hooray!
And the poll worker, her name was Vivian. She was delightful. She's like, I'm 67. I've been doing this for X number of years, and I've never seen this many people.
Oh,
and
thank God.
I think that is good. That's my take. Well, first of all,
I hope it's good. I really hope it's good.
My name is Matt Silverman, and the other voice that you hear sniffling in the background is my co-host. Her name is Colette Bennett. Hello.
Hello. I have a cold, everybody, although I am in the recovery phase. I just want to warn everybody, you might hear some sniffs. I'm going to try my best to use the mute button so you do not hear me cough because it is ungodly. Like, here's the varieties of coughs, in my opinion. There's the polite cough. Then there's like, oh man, I got a real cold, like, like, oh, that sucks. And then there's like the deep, like chest cough when you have like something really in your chest and it sounds painful. It's like, and I guess that's also like the smoker cough. And then there's, to me, the worst variety of cough.
Oh, I thought that was the worst.
No, to me, the worst variety of cough is what I call the vomiting cough, which is when you cough so hard that you're like, and I'm in the vomiting cough phase, and it's just the worst. Like, I don't want to be around people. I don't want anyone to hear my voice.
No.
So, yes, I'm hoping that will not happen once on this show. Mute button, be my friend.
Great. You are, I would say, 3 days behind me in terms of cold progression. Whatever, we're in different lands, of course, but
yes, every
time I'm like, oh, I'm sick, and then your family usually is like, it's really going around. I'm like, right, it's just viruses. They always go around.
Yeah, they always go around. That people, I think that's just, how sometimes people are like, oh, the weather's nice today. Like, I feel like it's like one of those things that people just say.
Correct.
Like, it means nothing, actually.
No.
But I have also heard that because, that's what people say. And I was reminded, yesterday, a friend of mine said, well, did you test for COVID? And I was like, I haven't even thought about COVID.
It's so funny how we forgot to do it too. And then it was a couple days back. I'm like, maybe I should just test. And I had a test that was like flu and COVID together. It was a test from another country or whatever. So I was like, all right, let me try, and was negative on everything. And then it was, and in that way I was like, okay, relieved, because, the effects of long-term COVID are still a bit unknown. So I'm not interested in having that again. Thank you very much.
Big same.
And, but then I was like, oh, great. So this is just some bullshit that I just have to sneeze and cough my way through.
Right. Yeah. I too was like, oh, COVID. And my husband magically has not had COVID. He never got it. Right. And so
that he knows of, because
but he never got sick. So, yes, there's that, I guess. But so, I ordered a test and I was all nervous last night, and he was like, I really don't think you have it, because I think I would have it for sure. Mm-hmm. Like, if you had it, because, proximity. And I was like, maybe
he just has like a super immune system. It reminds me of like,
he does.
Yeah.
He does, because 10 years of getting sick around this person, and I think I've made him sick less than 5 times.
There you go. I mean, God bless him. That's amazing. And it reminds me of when we were in the height of COVID, and it was all this argument about schools and kids, and it's like, well, kids don't really get it. It's super mild, and it was just
they
like
sure
this.
Did.
Yeah, they sure did. But by and large, even when kids got it, it was mostly mild for them, which is not an excuse to like not mask, because A, we don't know the long-term effects. B, when kids come home to their parents and grandparents, that's when they get other people sick, who get other people sick, who get other people sick. So, but it reminds me of the mentality of like, well, it's not really affecting kids, so it's not a big deal. As opposed to like when polio was crippling a generation of children and people could not line up fast enough for the vaccine when it was created.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep.
Please
people
vote.
Suck. Please vote. What was I going to say? That my new neighborhood that I live in, or my new like county that I live in.
Yes.
It is directly next to, but you can see the spillover big time of the biggest Korean community in Atlanta.
Okay.
And so like everything, there's just tons of, bakeries and grocery stores and all that stuff. And you just see a lot of, Asian people out and about. And being out here actually has reminded me that they always wore masks as like a courtesy to begin
100%. 100%. That was the thing when it started of like, wait, people in Asian cultures have been doing this for decades.
This is just what you do. It's not weird. Like, so yesterday I had, and Matt knows about this, listeners, but you don't. I had all this fuckery with my internet, which like went up and down, up and down, up and down multiple times during the day. And I finally had to get them to come out and look at it and, dick around with it, and they fixed it. But so I was like, great, I'm still sick and I have to leave the house to go find internet. This sucks. But I was working. I'm like, all right. So I go down to like the local coffee house and I'm like, I'm going to put on a mask for the first time in a long time. Yeah. Because I don't think it's appropriate for me to be in public right now, but I have no choice. And I definitely was like, oh, I'm not the only masked person in this cafe.
Oh, interesting. I expected you to be like, and I felt weird and it was awkward.
No, not because I mean, and like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, really, when you're on planes, when you're like really like in densely populated spaces, if you're smart, you'll put a mask on, really. Yeah. But I mean, some people will be like, fuck no, I'm not doing that. I'm never going back. But like, really, I think that there are interesting things to be learned from the entire mask debacle. Yeah, no shit. Well, I'm curious if when in the before times, when you would see a person of Asian heritage wearing a mask on the New York City subway, for example, were they doing that because they had a cold and were being courteous, or were they doing it because they did not want to get a cold from other people? Or both? I don't know, because I've never had a conversation with a person about it specifically. Mm-hmm. But like when I was in Japan, you just wear them. Yeah. Okay. That's right. Like, that's interesting. You just do it. If you're going to be around a shit ton of people, you just put the mask on. That's just what you do. Yep. Fascinating. Yeah. It's like, it's so obvious when you think about it, but it's so alien to our culture until 2020. Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. So, and I think like if you had traveled to an Asian country before that, like, and experienced it, you were like, oh yeah, okay, or like you might even have masks already. Like I had some, they were cloth though, but yeah, sure. But yeah, it was just, the whole thing was very interesting. So anyway, indeed. I digress. All right. Well, we're here to talk about video games, not our fragile democracy and our fragile bodies and minds. Because guess what, everyone? Finally, for the first time in history, you, my dear listeners, can listen to Nintendo music on the internet. We did it. Ever! Finally, you can stop buying CDs and cassette tapes of your favorite Kirby and Super Mario Brothers songs. Because Nintendo, our good friends at Nintendo, have released an app. APP, that's short for application.
Okay. And an application is a piece of software that runs on an operating system. In this case, it's a mobile app on your telephone. Did you know you could have applications on your phone? It's not just for calling anymore. Nintendo Music is a thing. And sure is a thing.
Do you ever feel like Nintendo makes certain decisions and like on one hand they're laughable, but on the other hand they're like really wholesome?
Yeah, of course. It's delightful.
And I'm like, that's so cute that you don't realize that we listen to Nintendo, BGM like all the time and then I was like, that's fine. That's fine.
But I found this to be, I think there's more to the story. I think there's more to unpack here from a music streaming licensing point of view. Because, and I actually should have done a little poking. Maybe I'll do this as we're talking. But like, I don't know that like official original Nintendo music is currently streamable on your Spotify's and Apple Musics of the world. Is that fair?
I don't know, because to be honest, I don't go look for like the bass soundtracks that often.
Yeah, right.
No, like there's a few that I go look for that I listen to a lot, but for the most part, I listen to BGM or lo-fi. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I personally listen to. So now if it's, if it's stuff like Animal Crossing, Pokemon, like that's really easy to find. But if I'm like, ooh, I want to listen to the Rhythm Tengoku soundtrack today, like it's obviously much more specific, but like I used to own it. I used to own the copies of those CDs and now I don't. But I usually just, even then I think I would go to, because I have YouTube Premium. So I think
for sure,
without having the ads, it makes it like my go-to for that kind of stuff. Anyway, I'm digressing, but
no,
yes.
You're not digressing. You're not digressing at all, because this is all connected to the things that I want to talk about here. Number one, thank God you have YouTube Premium, because, hey, did you want to watch this 6-minute video? Well, here's 45 minutes of political ads about the shitheads who are in your district running for various things. That's all it is on YouTube right now. And it's really, it sucks. It sucks because I like have to watch YouTube for a fucking living sometimes, and I'm like,
right.
I don't. Please, don't do that.
I think I've told this story on the podcast before, so I'm going to tell the most abbreviated version, the TLDR, which is that about 8 or 9 years ago, my then boyfriend said to me, "I want to pay for YouTube Premium," and I was like, "Why?" Like, because it was such a different landscape, and we tried it. And I can literally never imagine like using YouTube without it again.
Yeah.
When I'm on my work computer and I'll open up YouTube, I've experienced the ads and I'm like,
and you're like, what the frick? Yeah.
Well, I mean, 9 years ago, I don't think it was quite on that level.
Yeah.
But like now it's not even usable without premium for me.
Ads are ads, and they are annoying, and I applaud anyone who does who pays for their media. But there's just something about the like, everything is so, it's these negative political ads that are just in your face. I'm like, I just want to watch Lo-Fi Girl. I'm just trying to put on Lo-Fi Girl here, and I gotta hear the voices of these people. Anyway, but we are connecting back to some interesting things. So as we were chatting, I searched for Super Mario Brothers in Apple Music, which is the music service that we use, and there are many results, but they are all, as you said, remixes, and fan stuff made by a variety of artists, and many of them I do listen to, blah blah blah. But there are no listings on, at least on Apple Music, of like Super Mario Brothers theme by Nintendo.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And actually, you know what? Something else just came to my mind that I want to mention. Another thing I used to do when I wanted to listen to those soundtracks, I would listen to a lot of the VGM composers that were out there making like their own versions of those soundtracks instead of the originals. I just realized
because they're more fun, they're more interesting, they're fresher. I agree. I'm with you there.
Yeah, it's interesting. So anyway, yes, Nintendo is like, we hear you like our music.
But this is so... the more I thought about this, the more interesting it became, because their music is already all over the internet. And as we're going to get to in a moment, it is obviously everywhere as far as the eye can see on YouTube. And also, many, many other video game publishers have published their original soundtracks to these streaming services. So, Square Enix, for example, has many of their soundtracks already on streaming services. So it is this weird moment here of like, imagine if I'm trying to figure out a good analogy. It's not really like the Beatles or Taylor Swift, because like they're like these monumental artists who people can't live without, but it's more like, let's go 2 or 3 tiers below those artists. I can't really think of what that would be, but it's like if a major artist was like, hey, everyone listens to all the music on these services, but my music, to get Taylor Swift music, please download the Taylor Swift app. That's the only way you can stream the music.
Yeah.
The analogy is not quite right, because there is a world where like she could do that, and maybe there would be an economic model for that. I don't know. But imagine being the only video game publisher on the earth who is like, yeah, please download a separate app for our music.
Yeah,
and I just find that very interesting.
Like, but I agree. But another part of me is like, well, what about, those hardcore Nintendo people? Because I consider myself to be a big Nintendo fan, but not a hardcore Nintendo person, meaning I would not download that app.
Yeah, exactly. You and I are the target market for this. I listen to this music while I work often, and I want it. But I'm at my desk listening to another streaming service or to YouTube. I'm not going to open up a third app on my phone and then connect to headphones, and then like, it's just
no, it's not convenient at all. And it absolutely tracks with Nintendo's kind of like, here's our effort, but like, if they could think out things like this anywhere near as well as they think out like their like first party games,
imagine the world we would live in.
It would be something.
I will add here that I believe it's part of the Nintendo Online subscription service. So if you pay for that as like, hey, I play games online on Switch, I play the retro games on the service, and guess what? Here's a companion app for the music. As a way to bundle more value into your existing subscription, they're not charging additional money, I don't think. I think you just log in and you're there. There's no downside to this. But it is a fascinating like segmentation of their media outside of the traditional ecosystems. But the other thing that I am seeing sort of speculation on and worry about is like that Nintendo is going to be like, see, you can get the music legally. So please cease and desist all uploads to YouTube and other services.
Ooh, that would suck real bad for me.
And so now imagine if you could not play the music on YouTube and you had to download the app and you had to pay for Switch Online to listen to like the Kirby theme song. That feels weird to me in a world where they could put the songs on streaming services and monetize them that way. Which that's a different can of worms about like, do artists get royalties and blah, blah, blah. Like, I have separate thoughts about that, but it's interesting. Yeah. And then I saw another headline this week that Nintendo is not crediting the composers in the app. It's just kind of like Super Mario Brothers theme by Nintendo. Like, they're not crediting Kondo or whoever for each track.
Yeah, that's not cool at all.
That's weird. It's weird and uncool.
I don't like that at all. Because, I mean, yeah, like of all the VGM composer not to credit, you're like, Final Fantasy by Square Enix.
Right, exactly. Just like, we just like show who the humans who made the things that we love. So, yeah, again, this is all speculation that they're going to pull it down from other places. But like, it feels like they could easily do that given their track record on a lot of this IP stuff and streaming and YouTube and whatnot. So interesting, if you ask me.
Capitalism, if you ask me.
I mean, so, I'm sorry. Like, if I upload the Kirby theme song to YouTube and Nintendo claims the IP, then it runs ads on that and the money goes to Nintendo. So it's like you win either way.
Right. So why
when people
must
steal your music? So why are you creating this separate fucking app? It's so weird.
I don't know. But it absolutely tracks with their endless their kind of endless, like, we wanted to give you this, but we really don't get it.
We wanted to give you this, but we really don't get it.
We really don't get it. Yeah, we don't get it.
Really
oh boy. It's once again, I go all the way back to the beginning. It's kind of wholesome. It's a little charming.
Yeah, no, it is. It has its charm. The other feature of the app is like something like called like extended play, where you can just like extend the music, because like all this game music typically loops seamlessly because the level, you're playing a level and it keeps playing. So like you can just extend it for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. And everyone's like, oh, that's so useful. I'm like, just fucking hit the loop button on YouTube. And that's the same thing. Like, this is not revolutionary, you know? It's just funny. Or the repeat button, whatever it is on YouTube. Henny Hoozles. Any other thoughts on that before we move on?
No, that's the end of my thoughts.
Great. I wanted to briefly mention that the Harris Waltz campaign, speaking of voting and such, they just released a Fortnite map, I guess to promote, obviously, to reach the fellow kids and the youngsters out there. And the name of the map is called Freedom Town.
So cute.
Cute is one word. The whole freedom thing, at least in American discourse, tends to come from one side of the aisle rather than the other. Like, everyone agrees that freedom is good.
You're right.
But like everything, America rules because we have freedom. Like, that feels so. In addition to this being
feels
like
very, very right,
cringy fellow kids, it also is very like a very strange thing. And I was trying to look. It's funny because like my son and I, to a little bit, have gotten a bit into Fortnite recently. I will say, because whatever happened with the Switch version, it feels way better to play. I think they upgraded Unreal Engine, and that may have translated to all versions of Fortnite. That's for sure. But hopefully the Switch version. And so the more playing it these days is it's pretty good, and it's a really fun game. So my son's been getting into it. I've been playing alongside him here and there just to like fully understand, you know, the ins and outs of Fortnite. I feel like it is my civic duty to get a handle on Fortnite. And I did want to pop into Freedom Town to just be like, what do y'all do in Freedom? Like, what do we do? Do we shoot each other in Freedom Town? Because that feels very American.
That feels weird, yeah. But also very American.
So, but I did not have an opportunity to do that. And I was trying to find footage of it online outside of this little trailer that they released, and was not able to do so. So I don't know. It's just some youth volunteering for the Harris Waltz campaign put this together, and I say God bless them. Well done.
I love it as an idea. I love the fact that this is something that a political campaign came up with, because excuse me, because I don't think I would ever have thought this was a thing that I could see. So I like that part of it. Like, I feel like a lot of the stuff that they've done with like this campaign, they have, like, yes, on one hand, they're absolutely trying to reach out to the kids. But on the other hand, I feel like no one's ever fucking reached out to the kids. Like, no one gives a shit about the kids.
Right.
And so, like, I do really like that part of it. I do really like that they're thinking like that.
And this is not the first instance. Waltz streamed a speech or a rally on Twitch in partnership with a World of Warcraft streamer. So it was like
cool.
You were watching I didn't watch it, but I just was reading headlines. You were watching Tim talk about the campaign and how great they're going to be. And then the split screen on the other side, it's some popular streamer just grinding out gold or doing whatever he does in WoW. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess if people are watching this.
I think about it like this. You know, it's going to be different no matter where you go. But like, for instance, when you think about our Discord, wouldn't you guess that probably the high majority of people in our Discord are probably like blue?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I would too. So if you think about it, does that mean that gamers in general are blue? No. But I think a lot of gamers might be.
It depends on the game, but I think this depends on the game. Are again, you know, are a variety of movie watchers blue or red? Well, you know, the ones who watch military shooting movies might be a certain way, and the ones who watch thoughtful foreign films are a different way. You know what I mean? It's
right. No, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. I guess my point is there might be a lot of people playing Fortnite who are of age to vote, but like I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before or not, but I didn't vote until like well into my 20s.
That's very interesting. Although, that's very interesting. Right. Because I'm like, every 4 years, but like local stuff, you just didn't do it.
No, and my parents didn't do it either.
Really?
My parents didn't do it, so they didn't teach me to do it.
Very
interesting. And then as I got older, I was like, and then I felt very intimidated by it. And I just felt like everyone in politics was full of shit.
Totally.
Which that bothered me too. Like, you know, as an empathic kind of person. Like I just always felt like this is all trash. And so, I just wasn't attracted to it. But then the first time I ever voted was for Obama.
Wow.
Yes.
2018, 2008.
2008. And I was like, I can't not vote for this person. So I think that was when my interest started. But I think about that experience and I think there might be a lot of people who have an opinion, who have many opinions, but, you know, maybe they weren't raised in families that were voters. So to me, this is a really interesting way to get it in front of them. Yes, it's a little hokey, but like, I think that's better than none.
Oh, yeah. Everything helps. You're truly blowing my mind and you're truly educating me here because I think we have this perception of like, how could anyone be undecided? How could anyone not go and be voting? Like, you know what I mean? Like it seems so strange. And you just came from obviously your own personal experience of like, oh, it just wasn't a thing. Hey, why don't we exercise? Because my parents never exercised. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, if it's not in your culture, then it is intimidating. This is so... You've really crystallized it. It's fascinating.
It really is. And you just, it's not, you know, like you said, you know, one part of you is like, well, how could you not vote? And then I'm always like, well, if it's a thing you didn't think about, exercise for my family was the same thing. No one exercised. No one. You know?
And this disillusionment of like, I've never seen anyone in my culture, my familial culture voting, and all these guys are full of shit. This disillusionment of like, they're all the same. That's where we are right now. There are many people who are like, they all suck. And it's like,
absolutely. But if you can look at, you know, a thing like this and, you know, let's just say a person like a younger me saw this and was like, whoa, like a political candidate that like would actually care enough about me to make a level for a video game. Like, especially if I was really into Fortnite, like, I feel like I might be like, dude, that's awesome. You know, like I can imagine myself having that reaction.
That it's like, that it's cool that this is a campaign or a candidate that's like, like exactly. This is a social place where people hang out and your opinions matter and stuff. Yeah. I mean,
well, and what I keep thinking of is you thought about me.
Yeah, I know. I like that.
You thought about me, you know, a demographic that, yes, gaming is more popular. But if you think about it, the internet is still full of people that are like, you know, gamers are losers. Don't date a guy who games. Like, he's a loser.
Right.
Like, so yeah, there is a varied opinion, I guess, in comparison to, you know, this is why I love talking about all these different topics. Cause I feel like, you always get these moments where you're like, oh, wow, like I never would have thought of that. But there 100%. You go.
I expected this to be like, ha, 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 fellow kids, moving on. But clearly, no. I mean, your story is incredibly compelling. It's really, really fast. It makes me proud, like sort of proud of my parents of like vote. Like we would always go to the poll with them. And that's
so cool to me.
One part like childcare of like, hey, we got to go vote. Come, you got to come. You're 8 years old. Like what? You can't be home by yourself.
Right. And come see what this is, though. Yeah. Like
but
also,
there was even. It's funny. You grew up in New Orleans. Is that right?
I did. Yes.
Okay. I have memories in New York of voting machines in the school, and as kids, there would be an assembly. And everyone would go into the voting booth and like tick the levers for the exact reason that you just stated of like, it's not scary. It's not weird. This is what you will get to do with your parents and when you are 18. So, hey, try it out, take it for a test drive. And that was just part of the educational culture, at least around here. It sounds like that was not a thing where you were. Interesting.
Sure wasn't.
Interesting indeed.
I think this, and my last thing on this, I think this is a perfect example of why we need to cultivate curiosity so much more than we need to cultivate 100%. Judgment.
Yeah,
because and one thing I love about you as a friend and as a co-host is that you have kind of an eternal curiosity for, things I might think about games or other topics that I'd be like, I don't think that's that interesting. You will genuinely be like, whoa, tell me more about that. And I can tell you're actually interested. That's a rare quality in people. Because they tend to be like, well, let's judge some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
Because for whatever reason, judgment is just like a place that I think people like quickly flee to. And I guess you could spin it and say like, it's the difference between being open-minded or not. But to me, it's less about open-mindedness and more about curiosity, being curious about how other people's experiences are.
I do appreciate you saying that, but I will also add on this. Look, I have plenty of judgments. There are plenty of things that people do where I'm like, you fucking suck, whatever. Or I have plenty of judgments about media that I'm like, yeah, this sucks. But I think what we do here as a concept is like, I respect you, you respect me. So when one of us is like, here's this game that you don't care about, the other one, yourself included, is like, well, yeah, why do you like it? That's what is so stupid. But it's like conversation that is deeper than headline, review, judgment, conversation between two people about a piece of media, okay, fairly innocuous, or conversation between two people about policy or politics or candidates is the path forward for a more empathetic and understanding culture. We just don't do it because we fucking sit on our phones all day and look at headlines and get angry. Like that's our world now instead of, actual face-to-face communication.
Yep. Agreed. And maybe, one thing that makes it easier in this space is, like you said, there is a foundation of respect, and that might make everything easier and better, to set you up for those kind of conversations.
Yep.
That might be what it is.
How we build that mutual respect back into our public discourse, I don't know how to do that.
I have no idea.
Because
if I laugh for too long, I'm gonna sound like the whiskey lady on the side of the street.
Do not make her laugh. There will be no more comedy throughout this podcast. Yes, only seriousness.
No more laughter, please.
I wanted to briefly talk about Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which I think is it out? I think it's already out.
I don't know. I know a lot of my friends were like super excited, so I was like, "Is it out yet?" I know it's about to be out.
That's very interesting. Do you have any experience with this franchise?
I've never played it.
Yeah,
never played it. Had several friends that loved it, and I always thought, I wonder if I'd like it, but. Yeah, you ever have that experience where you get like something's getting big and you see it happening and you go, okay, and you're like, oh, there's several games in now. I don't know. Like you could get in it.
It's not
kind of kind of that.
And it's not really true. You can go in at any time, but yeah, you feel like you missed the train.
It's a certain like post FOMO feeling for me.
Yes,
it's like I missed it and it's gone now. And I'm like, no, it's really not gone. It's right there. But yeah, I have that feeling with several things, and this is absolutely one of them.
We were like that with Game of Thrones. We did not start watching it until like the middle of season 3 or 4. But then once we started, we're like, oh, that's what everyone's talking about.
It activated in full.
Blasted through it as fast as possible. But
that's great.
I bought and played the first one long after it came out for Dragon Age, and because it's a at least the first one was a BioWare. The first one's not an action, and it's not like a tactics game. It's like it's an RPG. I don't know if it's I don't remember if the combat is turn based, but it is a CRPG style BioWare game. And I remember playing it, and I don't know what happened, but I was just like, is this what it is? Like, I just was not impressed by it. And I think I chose a like kind of an offbeat character class, and so maybe I was playing it wrong, quote unquote, which is silly. But anyway, all that to say, I have touched the franchise, but I've never gotten into it. Veilguard is the 5th game, I think, 4th or 5th. And it seems they've gone full action RPG. And there's 2 things I wanted to mention. One is that I think it looks cool, and it looks very impressive technically. Like there are all these technical breakdowns, and it's like, this thing runs at 120 frames at 4K, and it's great. Like it's very performant, and it does all the things that a very competent video game does. But it's got an art style that is much more cartoony-ish, or like they're not going for realistic looking faces as you would see in a Baldur's Gate. They're going for not Pixar is the wrong word, but like mature children's animated movie looking thing. And I think it looks okay. I don't mind the art style.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to mention here is that the YouTube the first like sort of review-ish media that I came across was from Fextra Life, which is a YouTube channel that's very popular, and they do really in-depth reviews. I don't watch them regularly, but the ones I have watched, I'm like, oh right, this guy, I think it's just a guy or maybe a small team. They really dig in, they really do their homework. He's very focused on these types of games, and he's also a huge Dragon Age fan. And he made this video called The Truth About Dragon Age Veilguard Reviews. And I was like, what's this? So I watch it. And basically, a lot of media and influencers got access to a preview build, or maybe they played it at an event, and they were allowed to give early impressions. Maybe this was like a month or 2 ago. And his impressions were like, this seems pretty good. I'm not sure about this or that. And hopefully the story gets a little better. But no, I'm optimistic. I'm a big fan. But because his sort of preview coverage seemed a little like wait and see tepid, he explains in the video that he's like, EA and BioWare have been in touch with me for months. We've been planning to get demos and review builds. And like I am on the list to get this game. And I am looking forward to giving it my full review. And then after he released this sort of preview footage, this preview impressions video, BioWare/EA like went completely radio silent on him.
Oh, whoa.
And he's like, hey, just following up, just checking in. Blah, blah. Long story short, he's making this claim that like it seems like they have been looking at all the sentiment around it and then only providing review builds for streamers and influencers and media outlets that are like most likely to give positive reviews.
Oh yeah.
In order for that initial sales window, that release window to have a skewed Metacritic or whatever score.
I have told the story on the podcast about my experience with this at Destructoid, right?
I don't, maybe, but I would be very interested. Please elaborate.
I have to have, but apologies anyone who has already heard this story. I just can't remember if I've told it.
It's relevant, so we need to hear it again, even if we have heard it.
Well, yes, of course. So, okay. So let's go back to Destructoid days, 2007, 2008. So Destructoid is getting, starting, it's kind of like the scrappy, like, people are like, whoa, like they're taking it kind of seriously, even though it was such a gonzo operation. And so, we're starting to get people coming to us, game companies coming to us and saying, we want to run ads on your site, right? So we ran ads for this game. Oh man, my shit ass memory is going to block it out. Like I can see the cover in front of me, but I can't think of the name. I hope it comes to me when I'm talking about this.
Okay.
But so at this
what
time,
type of game? So this is like 2000. You said 2008.
2007. The game was a AAA game. It was from one of the big publishers. I don't remember which one. It wasn't Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And at
talking,
that time,
describe the cover or describe the vibe of it, because I'm gonna look at games released that year and while you're telling the story.
You know what? Maybe if I do that too, because I can't. God, getting old sucks.
No, keep going.
There's two men on the cover. It's two men's names in the title.
Oh, interesting.
Let's look up AAA
Got it.
releases.
I found it.
What is it?
It's the B movie game.
The B movie game?
No, just kidding.
Matt.
I'm just kidding.
I really want to think of this man. I'm still looking while I'm talking, okay?
Okay.
So anyway, so they pay us. We put some ads on the site. This is the days of site skin. So they're like, we're going to put a site skin.
Right. Totally.
You get paid a nice chunk for a site skin at this time, right? So we're like, okay. So then they send us the game pre-release and they're like, can you write a review? Now, at this time, our reviews editor is none other than Jim Sterling.
Right.
Who, especially at this time, was in the midst of kind of making his name for himself by being just rippingly honest. And he was kind of, I think, like really focused on the idea that he just didn't want to review a game and like do what IGN was known for doing, which was like what we used to call the 7 to 10 scale. There's really at the time there wasn't a lot below it, and the reason why was because they didn't want to piss off the publishers, which we'll get to that in a minute, right? So he goes in, he reviews the game, he absolutely eviscerates this game. He's like, terrible fucking game. Like, I think he gave it like a 2. I think about my experience like running teams for newsrooms now, and I'm like, I would have fucking fired his ass, like if I had been his boss at that time, because there is a unspoken like dance between like dealing with
but if the editorial
like a client,
yes, but the editorial thing and the sales team must be separated if a publication is to have credibility.
Oh,
and then I think I'm speaking in strictly philosophical terms, and I think the answer is no. We are not able to review your game if this will create a conflict. You can't review it. Yeah,
I mean, look, this is why IGN got the 7 through 10 rating thing, because people come after you if you don't review their games well, period. And that's the whole reason I'm telling this story. So the review goes up. Obviously the people that made the game are fucking pissed, and they want all the ads pulled, they want the review pulled, which we wouldn't do, and then they want their like money that they paid in full refunded. And I remember thinking to myself, this is my very first experience ever with like what it's really like to deal with the weird balance. So I think as people that read the internet, you can look and be like, man, like like, IGN's not ethical or, blah, blah, blah. Like, but honestly, if you had any idea of how difficult a balance it is to have good relationships with publishers and also review their games honestly, it's extremely hard to do.
Which is why I think
because everything is business. Everything is a business relationship when you drill it down. That's the problem.
And there's a bit of this is such good groundwork for pulling out a bit more nuance here, because I'm fascinated now with influencers being like, hello, this is my video game channel, and here's a review of this video game brought to you by Squarespace. A product or a company that has zero to do with the games industry. That is the solution of like, yes, people who play video games also want, meal kits and website software. We don't need to muddy the waters where video game publishers are paying to sponsor the content. But then if you leap a bit further into this particular story with Fextra Life, is like, this channel is not sponsored by video game companies, but their access to the game so that they can review it to their audience is contingent on the publisher even giving it to them. And that is where this guy ran into this roadblock of like, oh, he even played a clip of like what he said in the preview, and it was so tame and innocuous and like not negative.
Yep.
And yet I'm sure there's many sides to the story. We should not take a single YouTuber's word for anything, but it just was. So basically his point was like, hey, if you care about this franchise and you're excited about this game, you should wait to see what the reviews look like on Steam or 3 to 4 weeks after it comes out, to see like, hey, everyone else who finally bought the game and reviewed it,
right?
What's the general temperature of it now that that first wave of sort of like cherry picked outlets, etc. And I found it very interesting, not too surprising, but like a reminder that it still happens.
Right. Well, on top of that, I have to tell you that I finally found it on the internet.
What is the game?
Kane and Lynch, Dead Men is the game. And I'm reminded by a 2009 post on Destructoid that not only did all this trouble go down with us, but Jeff Gerstmann of GameSpot at that time lost his job.
That's what it was about?
Well, that also happened.
But I'm saying like that was the reason he got fired from GameStop?
Yes.
Was over this review? Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I'm a fan of Gerstmann.
We gave it a 3.
Yeah.
We gave it a 3. And I don't know what IGN gave it, but it was low enough to apparently get Gerstmann fired. So I forgot about that part of it because it was such old history. But I tell this whole story because I think it's good for people who read reviews to look back and to remember, like, if it was like that then, what's it like now? True. And it's my guess would be if I was in it again, which I would never want to be in it again, it's probably much worse.
I suspect much worse and or much more complex, I imagine, because of the fracturing of media, influencers, streamers, media, journalists, and who some of these people have journalistic training and integrity, and some of them are just guys on YouTube who do whatever they want to do. They don't have necessarily a code of ethics. The moral of the story for consumers is obvious, at least to me, and I'm sure many of our listeners, is like, I don't care what the fuck you're buying. You do not just click the first Google result. You do not just watch one review and say like, yep, that's definitely the thing. If you're buying a can of soda, okay, the stakes are low. But if you're buying a $70 video game and you're going to commit, 50 hours of your life to enjoying something, you better believe I'm going to watch at least 3 or 4 reviews, written or otherwise. And so I have no interest in this game. let me rephrase that. I have very minimal interest in this game because I don't play the franchise and whatever. But it's like, you know, it's a good looking action RPG within a fantasy setting. Like I'm always listening for those types of games. And I watched another review that did come out in a timely way. They did get a review copy from another reputable YouTuber. It's the name is escaping me right now. And they eviscerated it. Like I'm fascinated by how divisive this game is, because I think there are a lot of people who are like, yes, they did it, and BioWare's back, and you know, the franchise is back, because I think they really whiffed pretty hard on the last few Dragon Ages for various reasons. But the way this other reviewer like articulated it, it's like, it's a BioWare game. And you go into these conversations and the writing is the most vapid, lame, you know, vanilla, whatever. The characters are like, we will do this now. We must make a choice. And you're getting these dialogue choices, which if you've played your Mass Effects or your other BioWare titles, it's like the choices you make in the world and in conversation with your companions, whatever, these all matter and branch out into different storylines. And this reviewer is like, I can count two times in like 80 hours of gameplay when making a choice did anything. Because he's like showing footage where he's like, you can choose like, yes, I agree with you, definitely. Or you can choose like, fuck you, you're the worst. And he clicks on the renegade option of like, oh, you suck, I'm tough. And you click on the text for that choice, and the character is like, I slightly disagree. And it's like, no, I wanted to say the strong thing. Like everything about it is so milquetoast, where it just like the story just pushes you along the accepted path, regardless of what choice you make. And it's like, then don't even put that in the game. Just make it like an action RPG and beat shit up. It's very interesting how divisive this is. But that review in particular made me be like, yeah, this is not a $70 purchase for someone who doesn't care. To be honest,
it wasn't specifically that, but it was one of the things. I stopped reading video game reviews. I just stopped.
Yeah. I read Steam reviews and Reddit.
Right. I'm okay with what do you call, like when a whole bunch of people weigh in and you get an average number. I'm okay with that. Because I'm okay with, you know, no one's paying those people. None of that is affected. So I'm all right with it.
Correct.
But yes, knowing and having seen it, having seen so much of how it operated on the inside, even all the way back then, I'm just like, no, I can't vibe with it. So yeah, totally. That's my story of the Kanan Lynch debacle.
I don't remember you telling that, so I am very glad that you did. Oh my god,
well, I'm glad I did too, and I just assume I feel like you might remember if I told it. I don't remember, I would
remember this. I would for sure, especially that Jim / Stephanie was the reviewer.
Yes.
And again, like I am a fan of Jeff Gerstmann, and I'm a really big fan of his integrity, and he talks a lot on his current show about like the business, the suits and the corporate interests that run various holding companies who are like, you should do this, and he's like, how can we have credibility if we do what you think we should do? Like, that's ridiculous. And he has gotten in hot water, as you said.
Yep.
But he, according to him, again, just one side of the story, he has stood his ground and said, fuck y'all. Like, this is not how we do it.
Multiple times. So yeah, I think it's very cool to kind of, you know, this just happened to tie into that and kind of make you think about it. Like, he really has done that. So that's very admirable to me.
And his war stories about the media business, which predate us a little bit, but also the way he talks about it, I'm like, oh, right. We went through the exact same stuff, but it was just about tech and social media. It was about a different coverage area, you know, at least for me, you know, and I'm sure you as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Video games, like the industry of video games feels forever ago to me at this point, like so old,
for your career, like looking back.
Yes. So old.
Yep. Yep. I think that was all the big news, unless there was anything else you were interested in covering here before we take a little break.
No, I don't have any other news. Most of what I have on my plate this week is to talk about video games.
Yes, let's do it.
Video games we played.
Yes. You actually played something?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I did. I've unpacked.
Welcome back.
I've unpacked enough house to be able to play some things. Very, very exciting. Do you want me to go ahead or?
No. Dear listeners, if you want to hear what Colette's been playing, you got to come back after this important break. That's called the tease.
I got it. Got it.
Okay. We have returned, and my co-host has actually played some video games this week.
I played some games. So, I'm still playing Silent Hill. I didn't want to not mention that. Mm-hmm. But I have realized something really interesting about this remake. I have said on this show before, I'm sure by now, that there have been games that I looked so forward to, and horror games. And then I got them and I was like, this is too well executed, and I'm actually scared, or I'm actually stressed.
Oh, okay, right.
So I'm not scared, but I feel like this remake has made me able to feel the trauma of what James goes through so much more clearly.
Interesting.
That I have to, I am not in the mood to trauma it up every night. I'm not. Like, sometimes I just don't want to do that. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, well, if I'm not in the mood tonight, I'm going to play something else. So I've actually played a lot of stuff this week, not a lot of new stuff, but I'll start with the new thing that I played, which I feel like I really ranted about if you're in the Discord, and that was Metaphor ReFantazio, which I was like, okay, we have a new IP from, the Persona people. Could not be more my shit. Like, I'm extremely excited about this. But then it came out, and it came out so close to Silent Hill.
Yeah.
And I was getting ready to move. I was like, damn it, I really want to play that, but I'm just going to have to wait. And I also remember that as much as I thought the aesthetic was like amazing, I was also like, I don't know, it's like a fantasy thing. And like, I've never been like really a fantasy. Like, I feel like that's not the game setting. I tend to, sorry, let me specify, like a medieval fantasy setting. Yes. Mm-hmm. So like, that's just not, I think I just played so much of it in my NES and SNES days that I just got to a point where I just wanted other types of settings. And then when I found Final Fantasy VII, I was like, oh my God, other types of settings. And that was it. Mm-hmm. But so I think maybe sometime last week, I guess, I somehow, some way bumped into the fact that, there's a demo, and people are saying that this demo is like long as hell. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I want to try a new thing. And so I was like, I'm going to get it, downloaded it on Steam. I wanted it to look really nice. So I was like, let me, do it at the PC.
Was there a demo on PS5?
I think there might be.
That's
I think there is. Yeah.
That's good.
But I was like, okay, I got to try it. And sat down to play and literally had the actual experience that you and I always talk about, where we're like, a game comes in and it sweeps up every little ounce of all of your interest. Like, and this was such a shitty kind of moment for me, because on one hand I loved it, and on the other hand I was like, no, I'm playing Silent Hill 2. And I've waited for this game forever, and I don't want another game to like show up and take all my energy and like and interest. But it absolutely just stole the show. For me, it is the perfect balance of, if you're a Persona player, it's the perfect balance of like systems. Hold on, gotta have a coughing fit.
Oh, great. While the mute button's muted, I'm gonna just sing a song and fill the airwaves.
Thank you. That was not at all awkward.
She's back.
So to me, I think it was like the perfect balance. If you know Persona systems, you're immediately like, oh, okay. So we have a day cycle, and and the fights kind of work the same, but then they did this really cool thing to make the fights like part action RPG and part, which I'm super obsessed with that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like that part of it too.
So cool. I was like, ooh, that feels like an evolution to me, and I really like that. Love the character, was just so absorbed by the story. Like I was like, wow, I'm really interested in this story. I'm really interested in all these characters. And that's so unusual for me because I haven't felt really gripped by characters in a while. So wow, like that's super cool. So I think when I finished playing the demo, I think maybe I was at like 8 hours of gameplay.
Okay, I was going to ask you that.
It's long, like it's really long.
That's an 8-hour free game right there.
It is, and then on top of that, they're like, okay, so here's what you get, but then like you can carry all of what, and I think this is so smart. You can carry all this over when you buy the full version. Which is more and more
common these days, which is so nice to see.
It is, yeah. But I guess to me, it just felt like, you've kind of invested a lot at the point the demo ends. And I thought, that's kind of smart, really, because a lot of folks, I think, would just be like, nah, whatever.
Right. I gotta, if I love it, I gotta spend 8 hours doing the same exact thing. That's actually it's a hindrance to a sale, perhaps.
It's absolutely a hindrance to a sale. And I think like in this situation, like if I had played 1 hour, I think I would have also been like completely dazzled. But 8 hours was just like, oh my God, this is so great. So it was hard because I was just like, God, I want to buy this right now. And I couldn't. I just could not do it because I know myself well. And I know that if I do that, I'm not going to pick up Silent Hill. And I've waited so long.
Just
took
resist
a deep breath.
The urge. Take the deep breath.
It's a $70 game. Also,
it's 70. Yeah.
And I mean, for me, after playing what I played, I was like, look, I have no hesitations with the price tag.
Yeah.
It was more just like, hey, I just moved and I got to be thoughtful, right? And I just bought another $70 game, which is Silent Hill. So I was like, okay.
Oh, it was 70. Wow. Even
I think
for
it was.
A remake, that's interesting. Okay.
I think it was. But so I was like, okay, I'm not going to buy this game that I'm like so like hyper focused on right now. I'm going to finish my other game and I'm just going to play some other things. And then when I finish Silent Hill 2, I'm going to buy this game. And I'm very excited about that because I am super hyped to play it. Like,
love it.
I cannot wait to throw myself into that in full. But that said, I'm just like, I'm going to be responsible. And I am excited to report that I have been responsible and not purchased it yet.
And you have this runway of excitement. You can enjoy be excited about Silent Hill while being quietly excited for the next game, and then you can finish. You're giving yourself a nice carrot to enjoy.
That's how I feel about it.
I love that.
And I'm very proud of myself for not, doing the very ADHD thing of just get it. Like I want to get it, but But I have to say, like, I'm excited I really want to make sure that I finish Silent Hill soon because I want to play Metaphor before our year end so I can think about whether or not this is my game of the year. Because that's think how you
do need to do that. You need to do that for sure. Yes.
I'm already thinking about what my top 5 are, and I know what most of them are, but I feel like I would want to play a little bit more of Metaphor at least to be able to call it. But to be honest, I feel pretty close to already calling it as one of the top 5.
That's like, I know. It's amazing when you can when you really feel it hit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so excited about it, and can't wait to play more of it. I was also super excited because Honeybro in our Discord, who's a personal friend of mine in real life, like had the same reaction. And so we were both like, like very excited and very hyped about it, which is so fun to share that excitement with somebody.
Yes. Which is, were we talking about last week of like,
and I was like, Matt, you have to play the demo. You have to play the demo. And I feel like there's no way that you were probably as excited about this demo as I was. So if I'm setting you up, I apologize.
I have questions and thoughts about it. It did not. It made a bad first impression on me. Because you were so excited, and because you came to my house and forced me at gunpoint to keep playing.
Correct.
I continued on, but here's why it made a bad first impression. Metaphor ReFantazio, or as I like to call it, Cutscene Simulator 2024.
Aww.
It starts out with some really excellent anime cutscenes and like really great, like, here's the characters and here's the political situation, blah, blah, blah. But the game doesn't let you play the goddamn game for like 2 hours. And once the cutscenes are finally done, you're thrown into this world, and you start out in a desert, and there's enemies all around you, and you're like, okay, I finally get to play. And you got a sword, and your fairy companion with you, and I'm in love with her. She's amazing.
She's great.
She's like such a good character, but she's so cute, and she's not the annoying fairy. She's like the cool sidekick.
Not at all. Not at all.
So you're suddenly like, okay, I'm in the open world, and there's enemies, and I'm scanning them, and I run up, and the game's, and I literally take 2 steps, and the game's like, cuts 3 more cutscenes. I'm like, what?
Aww.
What game is? So then you go, and then you run up to them, and I'm like, I have a sword, so like, is this an action game? Do I hit them? And then it's like, no, you can't hit that. And then you walk, and then it's like, oh, and now you're in a new area. I'm like, why was I just in the like, what was the point of even playing the game if I'm not going to play the game? So I played for an hour and a half ish, and I'm like, I don't even know what this game is. I do not understand what type of game this is. Only by coming back to it and being like, I really do want to understand this. I do want to like talk about it and learn about it on the show, etc. Then you finally get into the turn-based combat, but you do not get turn-based combat with all the characters. You start to form a party, but you don't control the other characters. So I'm like, this is just an auto battle thing where I choose one character's things, and the choice of the main character is like, swing the sword or don't swing the sword. I'm like, and then the other characters just do automatic things. I'm like, what the fuck game is this? Keep playing. Eventually and also, let me just back up. I do not know what I'm playing. I do not know if I like it. And it's like the most anime bullshit you could imagine layered on top of it. And I am not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that in a like, you gotta understand how sort of like the narrator's like, what is fantasy? It's a mystical world. And I'm like, okay. We're good. We're good. We know we're good here, sir. So
laughing my ass off.
Once you finally get to the point where your team is assembling and you start to unlock more systems and abilities, which I won't spoil, but you know what I'm talking about. Then you're like, oh, and then you get into the turn-based combat where there is strategy and there are sort of like systems, and you should do this attack because this empowers this, blah, blah, blah. And then I start to see the menus and the voice acting, and it's like snap. It's these little turn-based battles that feel, like you said, they feel like action moments, except they're turn-based. So you can strike an enemy to like stun it, and then you quickly snap into the turn-based system, and it's like bam, 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 victory, and then you're moving on to the next thing. And it is sexy as hell.
Totally.
Everything about it is sexy as hell. It just took like 3.5 hours for it to be like,
to get there.
Oh, this is what this game is.
See, and it's interesting because I think because the story worked perfectly for me, that's why I was like all about it. But like, I think because you weren't into the story, therefore it made it feel like a slog. Whereas for me, I was like, yeah, this is perfect. This is what I want. Like,
here's what I'll modify. I do think the story is interesting, and I do think it makes a compelling case for like a cool, fresh, a political intrigue type of world. So I don't think the story is bad. I think a good video game tells the story while you're onboarding into the mechanics. But this game is just like cutscene exposition. Hey, you want to play this game? Nope. More cutscene exposition, and it blocks you from experiencing what the game is for way, way too long. If I didn't know you, but I happened to be like, oh yeah, people are talking about this, I would have uninstalled it immediately. The demo.
Wow.
And I'm glad I didn't, because I do really like the game. I do really like it. I guess my other concern with it is like, it feels amazing to play, looks amazing, cool story, etc. And the skill system is fun, I'll say. But when you break it down so far, and you please tell me if I'm mistaken, it's just fighter, mage, thief. It's not like, it looks cool, but like so far the class system is like from a 1994 Final Fantasy game. Like there is not much going on mechanically yet.
Those pieces are there, but one thing that I thought was really cool about it was that, and I guess you're right in that it is kind of like the job system. Any character can, like, you know, like let's say your character is a mage. Okay, they're a mage, but they can all learn any job.
There's a whole skill tree that okay, let me ask you this. If character A learns mage and fighter, can that character switch between the skills in battle, or do I have to like equip it pre-battle?
Trying to think. I think you have to equip it pre-battle. I think you have to learn it. Yeah. And then you have to, I believe that's how it is. So if I'm not mistaken.
I don't want to prejudge it because clearly there's a lot more depth to be had, but like that was my impression too. And it's kind of like, well, if I'm training this character to be a mage, they're going to be the mage. So why would I give them other skills if my other characters have those other skills? And why would I like switch in menus before every battle to kind of like configure it's like, no, this is the mage and this is the fighter and this is the seeker, who is the other class, which I guess is like, I forget what, they have like elemental powers. So one has wind, one has fire. Again, so far, it feels like it has a really sexy coat of paint, but in the core of it, it's a super basic job system so far.
You could be right. I guess I will have to dig deeper and see. And I also guess I didn't mind that I guess I didn't mind the basic job system.
No, and it's fine. We know it and we love it. I guess I was expecting something to knock my socks off mechanically, because the visual and audio, like the way the characters speak to each other during the battles, like in certain video games where there's a lot of character barks and they're like, you got it, and you just do this, and it's so annoying. And there's something so cohesive and brilliantly like directed about the way the characters like give you information and talk about each other, but you're still going wham, bam, 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 bam. Like it's so beautifully presented from an audio visual point of view. And I'm like, this is great. I'm having a good time, but I'm just pressing Y to activate fire over and over again. And so I assume it gets better, but I just was not blown away by the mechanics yet. That's it,
man. Well, I was wrong, guys. I was like, Matt Silverman's gonna love this. This is gonna be the Atlas game that Matt Silverman goes nuts for.
Hey, man, I love
was wrong, y'all.
13 Sentinels, and
That's
what
true.
else was I playing? No, Unicorn Overlord. Speaking of game of the year, like it's on the short list for me.
Nice.
With for sure. It's the game I probably spent the most time with. And loved. I loved every minute I spent with Unicorn Overlord. I'll say that. So more to say on that eventually. But look. So here's the deal. Talk to me in 4 months when the game is, $45.99 and I have room in my life to play it, and then
would you
let's do
like
it.
after all those cutscenes, do you think would you not be turned off to go back to it?
No, because if it is indeed a meat and potatoes turn-based RPG with great characters and story, and it's fun to level up and make cool fireballs, then like I'm not opposed to that. I see people talking about Metaphor being like, oh my God, this is gonna blow everyone away, and I'm like, it's
what?
a very competent, sexy looking game that does the things that all the other games do. And so yeah, I guess that's where I am. I'm not going to pay $70 for it, but it is on my list to play one day in the future.
Well, you heard it here, folks.
But I need you. I do very much need you to get the full game and then keep us apprised of how it goes, because as you play it and talk about it mechanically, that will very much inform where my head lands.
Well, I'm extremely hot for the full game, as you may have gathered. So yeah, that will be no problem whatsoever.
If you could just pay $70 and play it for me, that would be great for me.
You can pay me $70 to play it
for you. Let's split it. We'll split it. You play it, and I'll watch you play it.
Oh, good times. So you played some games as well, though, that I think you had shared with me, and I'd like to hear about your games.
I really will just talk about one game for the time being. Speaking of $70 games that I will be spending that money on, I have never. Just get ready. This is a sentence I have never said in my entire life.
Ooh.
And I will probably never say it again. But I cannot wait for February 28th. To come, because that is when Monster Hunter Wilds, the next gen. Is it the 28th? I'll look that up. Maybe I got.
No. I actually watched the trailer last night, and I was thinking of you, and I saw that date come up, and I was like, okay, so that's the date at which Matt Silverman drops off the face of the earth.
No, the podcast will end because there is nothing else for me to do or play. I will not be available after that date. And the open beta for Monster Hunter Wilds was available throughout this week. I think it started out on PS5 and then gradually opened up to Steam. And I think it is coming to Xbox as well. I could be wrong.
So did you play the open beta?
Correct.
Okay, cool. All right. I want to hear all about this.
Yeah. No, this is not just me being like, oh, the trailers look pretty, because I've been keeping an eye on the reveals of the gameplay and trailers, and they showed off whatever at what's the Jeff Keighley thing? Game Fest? What is it? I don't know. Whatever that was.
I know what you mean, but I don't know what it's called.
It's escaping me now. So as a very big Monster Hunter fan, this was like, okay, well, I am looking forward to seeing what they do with the franchise. And so I didn't even realize they were doing an open beta. I think they more recently announced it. They're like, guess what? This week you can log in, and you're not being chosen. There's no queue. You just download it and you play it. And I was watching some people play it on PS5, and I was like, streaming it. And I was like, this looks really like the way the monsters are animating and the way they're fighting with each other, and it is tried and true a Monster Hunter game. But when I finally got my hands on it, this was Thursday night, and yesterday I started to really get a sense of like how innovative, and it's funny because like I think a lot of what I'm going to say would be very exciting and interesting to Monster Hunter fans. And then I think to normal people, they're kind of like, yeah, okay, so you fight monsters and it's an open world. Like, okay, like this does not sound impressive, but I will explain a bit more as I go. Number one, Monster Hunter games typically do not have interesting stories. The story of and I've played World on PC and I played Rise on Switch, and I've kind of like peeked back at the previous Monster Hunter games, but I have not. Those are the ones I played, and I played an obscene amount of hours of both of those games. And so the from what I gather, the story of Monster Hunter games is like an old samurai who's like, monsters are attacking the village. Who can stop them? You look like you could stop them, and then you just fight monsters. That's the story of the game. There's no emotional gravity to the game. This one, I guess I don't know if they're going to change the prologue or change the structure of the game, but it puts you right in the story, and you're on this sand ship and you're out there, you're on a mission doing something, and you see a kid on a bird. The birds that you ride in this game they're like horses, but they're two-legged birds. It's hard to compare. They're not ostriches. They're chocobos. Okay, there we go.
Okay, that's a good comparison.
You ride a chocobo in Monster Hunter World, and they're called secrets, but not spelled secret. It's like secrete or something, but all the characters just say secret or whatever.
Okay.
So you ride these chocobo birds. And so you're on the ship, and all of a sudden you see a kid riding the bird, and I think it's a girl, she's being chased by these sandworms, basically. These are the mini dune sandworms that are like chasing, like 15 of them are like chasing her. And you're like, oh no, what are we going to do? And so you rescue her, but none of this is gameplay. It's all cutscene. And it kind of shows you like that you can ride the bird and you can interact with the environment. And then they throw you the sword and you save the girl. And she's like, oh no. You're like, why are you here? And she's like, my brother, he's in danger. So like immediately your character and the world is suddenly like, there are like humans whose lives are at risk, and you're like saving children. And I'm like, all right, let's go. Like we're in on like
okay, this is different. Let's do it.
It's very different. It really is very different. There were immediately emotional stakes. Oh, backing up a smidge, another part of Monster Hunter is character creation. And the character creation tools have always been, from what I have played, really robust, where you're like drilling in on the face and you're changing the eyebrows and there's 400 different hairstyles, and you can make literally any looking character that you want. And you obviously do that first. And it's so beautiful and it's so granular, and it just pops. Like your character just looks so beautiful. I don't mean that in like this is a pretty person, though you can of course make a sexy lady or a sexy guy, but like you can just see the bristles in the hair and the freckles, and you can adjust everything. And there's something about the physics where the way the clothes flow, like you can rotate your character around, and their shirt kind of like billows. And it's the RE engine, which is Capcom's engine for the RE games and also for the Monster Hunter games. And this engine is just very impressive to me. It just looks and feels, and the physics of it are always very impressive, because it's a very physical, tactile type of game.
Yeah.
So you're designing your character, and then you design your palico, which is your sentient cat, two-legged cat companion who helps you on the hunts. And you can just make the cutest cat. I'm seeing all in the subreddit, like my cat Buster, I made him, and he's in the game now, and it's just really adorable, of course. And then you go out on the beginning, and you see the cutscene, and you're like, whoa, like we got to save this kid, and we got to find the brother, and whatever. So then you arrive you drop you in this like makeshift little camp before you get to the main hub, and you have your great sword, but you can switch to any weapon right away. So I have preferred weapons that I like to use. And I'm like, you're not on a mission. You're just like on the sand dunes. You're like in a little camp at a little oasis or something. And there's like a little barrel where you can do target practice, and you can like feel out the moves and the weapons, because that's like obviously a huge part of Monster Hunter is like learning your weapon of choice and getting into the rhythm and figuring out how all the combos work, blah, blah, blah. And I start playing, and there's a couple things. One, I've been playing Rise for 1 billion hours on Switch, and it's amazing. It's an amazing game. It's incredibly performant, but it runs at 30 hertz, which is fantastic. But it's been a long time since I played a Monster Hunter game at 60 frames. And so there's just like, again, this physics engine. It's very fluid. It's very dynamic. Everything feels very heavy, and you're moving around. But like your character just has this weight, and it looks so fucking good. But then I'm swinging my sword, and I'm like, whoa, this is cool. And I'm moving through the sand dunes, and I'm realizing that the dunes are sort of like becoming deformed under my feet. And as I like hit the ground, I'm kind of scattering the sand, and all of a sudden I'm seeing my clothes, my armor, which is like a leather armor that's kind of bulky or whatever. You see it swaying, but then I'm like, oh my God, that like the sand is getting on her clothes of my character. And like as you move, the sand kind of like brushes off. It's like, it's so, even in this first few minutes of the game, you're feeling how dynamic and tactile the world is.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, wow, it just felt unique. It felt rare. I've never, when you play action games, sometimes it's cool to see how the world kind of breaks apart or deforms based on what you're doing. But this felt very special immediately.
Wow.
So I equipped my weapon, and then I think it puts you on like a tutorial. It puts you on a tutorial hunt where you're just hunting like one of those little sandworms, and you take care of it, and it's pretty basic. And then you ride your bird to the main camp, and this apparently is like the main hub of this world. And so the world is open, and it is a mostly desert, rocky, craggy area. But as you traverse it, there's forests, and there's different biomes. But it's mostly like it feels very like a Mediterranean, Mesopotamian, sandy kind of world, which I dig. Okay. You ride your bird up, and you're in this hub world, and all of a sudden there's like 50 other players in the main area. And you can go in your tent, and you can eat a meal, or you can change to different armor, or you can talk to NPCs. But as you walk around, I don't fully understand how the lobby system works. And it's like, hey, you're online. You can toggle this off whenever you want, but you're in a lobby. And I'm like, okay. And it's like you're there with 50 other people, which is not how a normal Monster Hunter game works. Normally, you say, I want to play with online, and then you start a mission, and then others can join your mission, or you jump into a mission that's already happening with other players. Or you sync up with your friends, and you create a 4-person lobby, and they're in the town, and you're all preparing together, then you go out together. This felt different because like everyone was at the camp. Like everyone from all over the world was like hanging out, getting ready to do their missions. And I'm like, okay, all right. So you do the little story stuff, and you start to go out. And then the next thing that struck me as so impressive is that in every Monster Hunter game previously, and certainly the ones I've played, it's like you're in the town, you accept a mission, you eat some food, you put on your armor that you want that's relevant to the mission, and then you say go, and there's a big loading screen, and then you're dropped into the biome where the mission takes place, and then you hunt, right? This one is you accept a mission, you say, I want to play with other players, you do all your preparation, and then you hop on your bird, and your bird just walks out into the open world, and the bird is like really good at smelling the monster that you're trying to hunt. So it will automatically run out to your target, but there is no loading screen. You just ride out, and you're in the hunt. And again, this sounds very like trivial, but there's something about just leaving your camp and going out into the world seamlessly that's like, yo, this is a next gen Monster Hunter game. It feels
different.
Yeah. It feels like a leap forward technologically. So with the bird, the bird will run to your destination, which feels at first like, wait, don't I need to track him down and hunt him? But it's actually cool because you can take control of the bird whenever you want. You can walk wherever you want if you want to. But while it's auto running, you can then hold left trigger and use like, it's not a grappling hook, but it's like a projectile grapple weapon that you cannot swing from like the wire bugs in Rise, but you can, if you see crafting materials in the world, which is part of Monster Hunter, it's like herbs and honey and different kinds of stones and different kinds of berries that you craft into ammunition or healing potions. Mm-hmm. You're just riding on your chocobo and you're like, whoosh, got that thing, whoosh, got that thing, whoosh, got that thing.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's very generous on the aim. So it's basically just like if it's in your line of sight and you press B, you're just like, whoosh, you grab it. So now what's happening is like all the like tracking the monster and which way do I go? And, I really need this material for later because I got to fill a quest. Now it's just like zooming out, grabbing all your stuff. And then, oh shit, here it comes. And you're in with the monster. Fight starts. The moves, the weapons are very similar to the previous games, but I think there are nuanced changes for different weapons that are interesting, and there's no wire bug. So all the wire bug skills that let you sort of Spider-Man around in Rise are not in this game, but there's other stuff that's new. So you're fighting the monster, and then in the first quest, again, I don't know if this is procedural or if this is a way to introduce you to all the like the systems, but I'm fighting this first monster. I don't remember what it's called. It's like some rocky lizard looking thing. And your Palico, which you can turn the Palico. Oh, you get a handler. Her name is Alma. So she like goes with you on the quest to kind of like tell you what to do and help you out and whatever. Which has been part of the game previously. And basically, I don't know who said it, if it was the Palico or Alma. She's like, watch out, the weather, a storm's coming in. The weather looks like it's going to change. And you're like chasing the monster, and all of a sudden the sky gets dark and these clouds roll in, and the dust from the sand from the dunes kind of like starts to billow up, and it's like whoosh, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I can't see anything, and lightning striking, and the monster's jumping out, and you're like, and the entire like biome changes like in a heartbeat.
Wow.
And you're like, whoa, and it's just like the most epic moment. And there's lightning striking the ground, which can hurt you, but also it's striking a certain area, and if the monster steps in it, they get electrocuted, which stuns them, and then you can get more hits in. And again, seamless open world, seamless transitions. You can ride anywhere. Dynamic weather that can change on the fly and completely change the strategy of battles. I was like, this is the next gen. This is the first video game. I'm not a console, like aside from Switch, I'm not a console generation guy. I'm a PC guy. And this is the first video game where I've like, this is a major level up in technical achievement for a game, for a franchise that I have personally touched, from myself.
Yeah. That feels so good. Like when you experience that with a franchise and you play something, I to be honest, to go back very briefly to Metaphor, that's kind of how I felt, because I felt like, having played the, Persona systems so many times, I felt like I was seeing that improved and like cleaned and like kind of modernized, and they've done that with every game, to be clear, in that series.
But that's the context I don't have that you have, because I'm seeing Persona, I'm seeing Metaphor, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a turn-based battle system, but you're seeing like, oh, they put that over there, and it used to be like this, but now it's like this.
Totally.
That's what I'm seeing for Monster Hunter.
I've seen it evolve a lot over all the, so that's definitely a part of it.
Which is why I was very eager which is why I pushed myself to continue playing Metaphor, to understand what you would be talking about and see the differences of like, you understand the nuanced leap forward.
Right, but you can't if you haven't had the experience. So it's only, you have to, it's not exactly fair is maybe the best way to put it. Like,
but it's interesting. But it's very interesting to parse those differences. So with Wilds, it's the physicality of the characters. of your player character, the physicality of the environments. There's something about the scales and the hair and the lumbering of the monsters. Like, they have done monster animation. It's so amazing. It's best in class for like many games, but there is just something about the way these monsters move and attack, and they feel so heavy. And I don't know, man. It just, everything about it feels so dynamic and so good and so next gen. Let me say three more things. The first is you can also interact with the environment in somewhat new ways, where you can use that grappling hook again, not to travel or swing, but if there's like a sparkly system, which has been in world as well, which is like anything that kind of shimmers with like little fairy dust is like either a path that you can travel, like that's like leading you to the monster, or it's a material that you should gather, or it's an object in the environment that you can interact with. So the menu, the UI clearly is like, hey, there's a rock loose up there above on the cave. And so if you just kind of look up there and go whoosh with your little grapple, you can pull it down. And if you've done that at the exact right moment where the monster is underneath it, you can like collapse a boulder down on the head of your prey and do like massive damage if you've done it at the right exact perfect moment with your team.
Wow.
And that sort of dynamism is also very cool, and I think is mostly new in this game. Then the next thing, which you don't learn until you get back to camp after the first quest or two, it's like, all right, here's your tent where you can eat a meal. And the cooking animation, top tier, has always been in Monster Hunter, but this is, you're just pouring honey on a steak and you're dicing vegetables and you're adding ingredients, and it's just beautiful. And then it's like, here's where you can equip your gear, and you can choose your set of armor and do the thing that you want to do. And here's where you can equip a secondary weapon. I'm like, come again?
A what?
I'm sorry, what now? Maybe it's like a hunting knife, where it's like maybe you can like shoot little knives or something. A secondary, maybe there's like a little secondary system. No, my friend, you can now take 2 different weapons into your hunt in Monster Hunter Wilds, which I did not know from preview footage, and I don't know if it was known, but your secret, your bird, your chocobo, has a pack that can hold a second weapon. For the first time ever in this game, you can go out into a fight and you bring I use an insect glaive, which is a weird one where you like send a bug to get essence from that monster. You pull it back, which gives you new moves, and then you can launch yourself into the air and do these crazy spin moves, which I love. It's very mobile. It's really fun because you're like changing direction in midair and spinning around. But then you're like, oh wait, I want to try a different weapon. And in mid battle, you whistle for your bird. You're like, and the bird comes, scoops you up, and you swap out for a different weapon. So I'm playing the bow. And then you jump off the bird, and you have a totally different build for a totally different weapon in the same fight, like almost seamlessly. I thought you were carrying both, but that they smartly were like, there's no way a human could carry this mega sword and this mega bow. Like, that's stupid. But it's the bird carrying your stuff for you and instantly being like there to like scoop you up whenever you need it. It's like an action movie. It's just epic. I don't know how else to say it. You're in the middle of a lightning storm with sand rolling and a monster's coming down on you, and you're like, you whistle and the bird whisks you away, and then you swap weapons and you turn around, and then all of a sudden you're firing a bow. And then, so now I'm learning 2 different weapons at the same time and remembering how they work and learning all the skills for them. And it blew me away. It blew me away how dynamic and how fun it is to do two weapons in a Monster Hunter game instead of one.
It's crazy to me that they've never considered doing that before.
In the expansion to Rise, there were like, it's very hard to explain, loadouts for wirebug skills where you're only using you're using the weapon that you chose. You're not changing weapons, but if you swap to the red system, you can do these moves. And if you swap to the blue system, you can do these moves. And I'm like, my brain does not work strong enough to fucking understand which moves. It's hard enough to play Monster Hunter full stop. Like it is like learning to play the piano. Like you have to practice and understand. And if you were to change to a different weapon, you're like, what game is this? I don't know how any of these buttons work. Like you have to relearn it. So the wire bug switching move set was like, I never used it because it was this idea of like, well, I can do this spin move and I can do this leap move, but if I'm spinning and I'm leaping and I'm up on top of the monster, I can switch to the other move set, which makes these buttons do totally different things. And then in that half a second, I can just slam down on his head because I changed move sets in midair. And I'm like, no way. There is no way I could learn this.
You're like, I can do what did you say?
And they released it as part of the expansion. So it's like, hey, remember how you've been playing this game one way for 400 hours? Guess what? There's a totally new way to play it. I'm like, sorry, I'm 42 years old. I cannot do that, sir. But now they're like, hey, man, you like the bow? It's really fun. You also like insect glaive? That's your main weapon. What if you could do both? And I'm like, what? This is so
what
great.
If I could? Man.
Final thing, it desperately needs optimization, which this is a open beta, essentially like a demo, which is now 4-ish months away from release. There's a lot of, at least on the PC side, there's a lot of optimization to do because I only play on 1080p on my TVs. I'm running it at medium settings and it looks great, but it is not holding 60 frames. And a couple dips here and there is like, okay, this is like an intense action game. Like that's one thing, but there's a lot of scenarios where it's like when you're in a forest or there's a lot of foliage or rocks, it's chugging. My PC is decent. It's a few years old, but because I play at 1080p, my PC does not break a sweat. It is no problemo. I've never thrown a game at it that makes it chug. When I come back to like, turn off my PC, I come back into my office here and it's like after playing Monster Hunter Wilds for a little while. So, and many people online are like, there's a lot of screenshots of like NPCs with big potato heads. All the graphic shaders are all fucked up. I have not experienced any like major graphical glitches, but it is not holding a 60 frames gameplay, which I'm picky, but also like you need to be able to smoothly animate and do your moves in this game. Otherwise, you're dead in the water. Like it's very important to have a stability.
Right. Absolutely.
Rise was at 30 and it was great. It was a really rock solid, stable 30. This has to be at whatever the target is. It can't be bumping up and down like this. So definitely some work to do on the PC side, but they have not let us down in the past. So this is my most anticipated game of 2025. I mean, we're not even there yet, but it is.
It doesn't matter. I'm so excited for you because I know what a big fucking deal this is for you.
I'm just impressed. I'm just like, they brought it, man. They made the thing that it is tried and true a Monster Hunter game. It's got all the stuff you love, but they just like leveled up everything about it. Mechanically, story, visuals, monster design, it just everything feels so much bigger, more epic, more dynamic. And now I'm just sitting here. There's 4 monsters to fight in the open beta, and there's no progression system, which was actually a little bit of a bummer because it would have been fun to be like, ooh, if I do this quest 3 times, I could get enough to make new cool armor. But those systems are closed in the beta. So you have like 3 or 4 armor sets to choose from. They look fine. They look cool. You can dress your character up cool. And that's it. You don't get to have the full Monster Hunter experience. But you can tell it's there. And
yep.
I'm hyped. I'm ready.
Yes. I am excited for you. This is going to be awesome. We did, as I said earlier, watch the trailer, and Patrick and he's played Monster Hunter before, but I have not I think maybe there was 1 or 2 times when I played, and I usually bounce off it. But when I saw this, we were both kind of like, well, maybe we could play together. That'd be really fun.
It sounds really fun to have to play with friends or to have a crew that you regularly. Oh, and I'll say this, like it is a multiplayer game. So like you can turn online off and you can just enjoy the game. But like Monster Hunter is so fun when you're teaming up 4 players against 1 monster because it gives you space to like strategize and learn the moves because the monster can only attack 1 player at a time.
Right.
So it feels more dynamic and it feels like teamwork. And I'm saying this to you because like, I know you're like, I don't want to play with randos, but there's no reason to have voice chat. Everything's just emotes and pings.
That's fine.
So like hopping into with randos is a wonderful way to play a Monster Hunter game, but being in voice chat and playing with friends also sounds really, really fun. I've never done it. I've never known anyone personally who plays the game.
Well, it might be us this time. So if it's us, then maybe you can show me the way.
And you just have to be prepared for the learning curve because in every action game, it's like press B to jump. And here's your heavy attack and here's your light attack. And you're like, yeah, I know action games. And this is like...
And you're like, wait, no.
Take your weapon out and then turn to the left. And then if you press this button plus this button and you're jumping and you're facing left, then you do this move. And you're like, what the... how could I ever... And after 20 hours, you're like, you're like, it's muscle memory. But yeah, I mean, like, I hate to say it. You have to just try. And you got to mess around with different weapons and see which weapon feels fun for you.
Yeah. Very cool. Let's see what happens come February.
Yes. Let us know, dear listeners, what you're playing. Many of you are checking out Metaphor, so we very much would like to hear your impressions of like the demo and or if you've continued on to the full game. What's tickling your fancy about that game? And I think a bunch of people have tried out the Wilds beta, so that is going on now through the weekend. So if you're listening to this when this comes out on Saturday, you may be playing it. I think I'm done with it because I fought all 4 monsters and there's no progression system. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is I know I love it. Great, uninstall, make room for other games. So do let us know if you are continuing with that. Final thoughts before we get out of here.
My final thought is, can I finish Silent Hill 2 Remake this week so I can buy Metaphor and start playing it by next week? Could I do that?
You could, just don't rush. Just make sure you're enjoying.
Yes. Very, 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 very good point. Oh, I guess it's time to end because my tuxedo cat just stood on her back legs and put her paws on my leg. Like, please look at me.
You literally own a Palico. If when you play a Monster Hunter game, maybe it's Wilds, you can design your cat, and he or she will be with you hunting monsters.
I would love to design a cat, although I would also like to just take Sophie with me, my tuxie, and that would be pretty cool. Maybe I'll just design a Sophie.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right. Share your characters and your screenshots in our Discord. Email us what you're playing. All the links that we've discussed are in the show notes, and we will talk at you in 1 week's time.
Bye, guys.